fans, wherever you may be, welcome back for another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Join your host, Bill Alvstad, and co-host, sports writer and football analyst Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Seahawks fans, welcome back to another edition of the Seahawks Playbook Podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers. We're doing one show this week, probably run a little longer than our normal shows. We didn't get in here right after the game for our recap, so this is going to serve as a recap show on the Seattle loss against the Panthers, and then we're going to talk about our midweek stuff, a variety of topics, and then we're going to take a look at the Thursday night game where the 49ers come into town to face off on the Seahawks. Probably the best case scenario for Seattle, just to jump right back in. Don't overthink this thing. Go out and play. See what happens.
Yeah. This is the Seahawks thought they were going to get a get right game, playing against a bad Carolina team. And instead they
got exposed.
Geno Smith picked the wrong week to have his worst game of the year. And they got down 17-0 early, battled back, never actually got a lead, but battled back pretty well. But then just could not stop the run in any way. And eventually just got wore down. I mean, time of possession was 2-1 in favor of Carolina. And
Seattle possessed the ball for 20 minutes.
Yeah. So I meant
it was Carolina
40 to 20.
46 times for 223 yards. That's kind of a pattern in case anybody hasn't really noticed. Seattle's given up in the last 5 games. I have this written down. 960 yards rushing
in 5 games.
5 games, yeah.
That's almost 200 yards a game. It's right there at 200 yards a game. Yeah. That's unbelievably bad.
Yeah. I think, really when you break it all down, you heard Bruce Urban talk about it. Of course, Pete Carroll comes in and says, listen, we got the guys, they know what they're doing. They studied, we worked on this, the same thing every week. What it comes down to is just doing it, just having the mentality of not allowing anybody to do that to you. But more than that, what it comes down to for me is we just lack the talent to be able to get this done. Specifically, when you take a look at a 3-4 defense, the most important position to anchor that entire thing is the nose tackle. You want a guy that's about 340 pounds to be able to two-gap and take, each side of the center that needs to be able to control that space, take on double teams, have offenses needing to double team him. We have a situation here in Seattle. We've got Al Woods getting a little older. Brian Monet is a big guy, but not athletic by any means. So you're having offenses choose not to double team those guys, and thereby creating gaps in almost every run play. There is at least one gap that's not covered.
Yep.
And allowing an offensive guard or the center to pull off of that situation and get into our linebackers, and all of a sudden you're having 4 or 5 yards before a ball carrier is even touched, and consequently you're seeing a lot of linebacker tackles, but they're way past the line of scrimmage. And,
in this game they did do some double teaming, not of the nose tackle for the most part, but of the ends, right? So you've got, Quentin Jefferson in there getting double teamed, which he doesn't need a double team to block him, but they push him back so far that it prevents the linebackers from being able to get to the hole, because essentially they're blocking him into and creating traffic for the linebackers. It is just bad. It was just bad.
It's a physical domination is what we're seeing. It's not like I like these guys. I mean, these are great guys. I think there is a better fit for most of the guys that we're going to talk about in this defense, in a 4-3 style defense. But when it comes to a 3-4, that anchor is so critical to everything else. Everything else builds off of that, from how the linebackers read the plays, diagnose stuff. So what's happening is nobody's really able to completely trust that their other teammates are doing their jobs correctly, and so you're seeing a lot of hesitation, a lot of filling of wrong holes, guys getting completely blocked out of space, and it's just a wreck. It's a wreck right now, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad scheme. It's a good scheme with the wrong personnel, and it's the first year of a rebuild. And my frustration, I think, if you're going to put anything on the coaching staff per se, is that they implemented this thing too soon, too quickly, full bore. Hey, we're going to go from 4-3 to 3-4 without having the right personnel to actually make that happen. And it takes more than one offseason to really do that. Unless you've got guys already on the roster that are athletically inclined and really fast at your safety positions and linebackers, and then up front, at least you've got one big, huge, stout guy that you can kind of put in there and you can build around. We just didn't have that,
and we still don't.
We still don't.
Even with the offseason and bringing in Al Woods, those guys aren't there. Really, the only person on the roster on the defensive line that I like in a 3-4 is
Shelby Harris. Well, maybe Shelby Harris.
Yeah, but Shelby Harris. Yeah, he can do this stuff too. He's athletic enough that he can do just about anything. But he's also good in a 4-3. He's good as a one gap penetrator.
Yeah, I disagree a little bit with you on Puna. I'll be completely honest. I've just seen him so overwhelmed, but he's not. There's nobody else around him.
He's one of those guys that's getting double teamed a lot. And yeah, he is getting overwhelmed, but it's 600 pounds of body pushing 300 pounds of body. And you're not going to win that very often.
And that's why he's slightly out of position. I mean, you're putting him as a defensive end in this system. And I just don't know about his athleticism at that spot.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it's lack of effort. I don't think it's lack of strength. Or character or the wrong scheme. It's just in this particular system, it calls out a certain type of player, and we just don't have those.
But
on this
what
team.
happened to the switching to a one gapping attacking defense that they did for a month, and the defense looked really good.
Yeah,
and they've gone away from as the run defense has fallen off here the last 5 weeks. They've gone away from that one gapping attacking defense. Where'd that go? Why move away from something that's working really well?
Well, especially since they know what they do have is not working, so they should be doing everything they can to help these players. And if that means going back to a 4-3, I mean, literally get back to a 4-3 this year, finish out the year strong. That's what they should be doing. You've got guys like Darrell Taylor is completely neutralized as a human being in this scheme because he just doesn't fit. He's a 4-3 end. He's not a 3-4 outside linebacker where he doesn't have his hand on the ground. He's just not. And so you end up with a bunch of guys like that. Like Boye Mafe was drafted, I assume to fit this scheme, but he can't really. He doesn't have any effect because he doesn't have any protection around him,
Yeah, he's a good fit for a 3-4. Like all of his athleticism will not go to waste there. Same with Brooks in the middle. But
I think our linebackers are good if they've got a stout guy in front of them.
They need more help by the front, and that's a lot of the problem. They need more help from the guys up front, and they're just not getting it.
But like you said on this game, Gino picked a bad game to have an off game, and that just shows you just how low it is the difference between winning and losing on this team right now. It's Geno Smith, and if Geno's off at all, that's it. Because Guys are going to run on us. The time of possession is going to be off. You know, if Geno doesn't have those 2 interceptions, we probably win this game.
Yeah.
And that's with like 40 yards rushing. You know, Carolina had as many rushing attempts as we had yards.
That's awful. But yeah, Travis Homer, 9 carries, 26 yards. Jones had 1 carry for 2 yards. That's it from the running backs. In fact, they only had one other run. That was
when you fall behind 17-0, that's going to happen too.
Fly sweep to Goodwin for -2 yards.
Yeah. So it's broken. It's broken. I mean, when the defense is that broken, and then you add mistakes which compound it, the turnovers, you're then giving their offense another opportunity against our bad defense. It just is almost impossible to overcome it, even when you play a really bad team that's inferior. And I believe the Panthers are. On any given Sunday, if we go out and play our good game against them, I think we win. But I'm so concerned about our defense now, Keith. I've gone from being, semi-optimistic here about the chances, unless there's some completely huge 100% full-on 360 turnaround with this defense. We're not doing anything. We're not going to the playoffs. We might lose the rest of our games. I mean, it's that bad right now. And those guys need to go in and fix it and have a little bit of pride. Even if they don't win this game coming up against San Francisco, I'd like to have them have a little bit of pride and go in there and at least get into a dogfight with this team. Stand up at home, push them around a little bit, get physical, stop have some plays behind the line of scrimmage, show some enthusiasm, try not to turn the ball over yourself and get in this game. At least give yourself a chance.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I mean, you'd like to think that they have a chance to go. They're going in against a third string quarterback who is a rookie quarterback, 7th round draft pick.
And they're not asking him to do a lot. They're just asking him to not turn the ball over.
You'd think that going into a game against a third string quarterback who's rookie 7th round pick, that they would have a pretty good feeling for being able to win this. Let's just transition into the preview. I don't see this as something that this defense can do.
Yeah, I do actually. And what I mean by that is as physically challenged as Seattle is right now with the scheme and personnel, I think as long as if they can focus on just gap integrity and player assignments and just play those and cancel gaps. Like right now, we're just not able to do it with a single nose tackle. I think we do need to have a 4-3 alignment to be successful at all. And I think they need to switch to that. I think this idea of putting in another defensive back, I don't think at the beginning of games you can do that. Teams are going to run on us. The last 5 or 6 weeks has proven that. I think San Francisco would be foolish to come out and try to throw with a rookie quarterback like that against the Seahawks defense. Why? Go ahead and put McCaffrey out there every single play and just see what happens. So I think you just got to load that box and then adjust if they do something different. But you've got to have 7 guys, 8 guys in the box until proven otherwise.
You gotta with Purdy in there as the quarterback, you've got to have guys up at the line of scrimmage. You've got to sell out to stop the run, because at least on one side of the field you've got Woolen. Even if he gets beat, he has the ability to catch up and make a play. On the other side, you rotate Diggs over closer to Jackson and you cover that side, and you just.
I don't think you have to worry about anything going over the top. This weird fear of getting beat over the top is fine and dandy. I get that, but we've reached a point in the season where you can't be worried about that stuff. It doesn't happen very often, especially against a quarterback like this. You're hopeful to take away some of those short yardage gains too, like on 3rd down and short. You've been running successfully so much against us third down conversion rates are 51% against us right now.
That's
We're like
terrible.
28th, 29th in the league right now against third
Mm-hmm.
down. And it's just awful. We've got to figure it out. Otherwise, I mean, and that's fine. That's what this season is for, is figuring it out. We kind of got excited there for 4 or 5 weeks when things looked like Seattle was maybe better than advertised, and we were in first place in the division. We were in the driver's seat. We were actually a third seed in the playoffs, and looked like we were going to control our own destiny. Now,
Now
not
they've
so
lost 3 out of
much.
4. They've lost 3 out
Now,
of 4.
and now it seems like everything is on the table again as far as the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just trying to evaluate players. It'd be nice to be able to have a schematically sound defense in order to be able to properly evaluate what's going on with player personnel as opposed to scheme. And I don't know, they can figure out the scheme part of it and this coaching thing in the offseason. That's fine. That's another conversation. But to evaluate players, you need to at least be able to operate within some sort of structure. Right now, it's hard to even figure out where the problems are. I just know, based on watching football for a long time, that it starts at the nose tackle and the 3 tech, and then it works out from there and back. And right now, our gap integrity is awful. Our linebackers are not protected. Our ends are being asked to do things that they're just not capable of because they're
There's
playing
not built to
out of
do.
scheme. Yeah, and so it's tough. Now our back end seems to be holding up just fine. I think we're good there, but everything else is a cluster.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk about the 49ers, because I just want to burn the whole Carolina thing. Everybody's talked about it at this point. By the time you've watched this show, it's been a few days. I don't think that we need to rehash that. So let's talk about the 49ers. It's a good team. I mean, they're more talented than we are. They're in a position now where they're going to take the division if they win even probably another couple games. And since we are 2 games now back, what are you expecting from them? They're on the road. They haven't been as good on the road as they've been at home. 6-1 at home, 3-3 on the road. They're a good defensive team. Clearly, probably the best defensive team, I think, in the NFC. And on the offense, they've been scoring enough points. I mean, they're probably the second best team in the NFC West, compared to, say, Seattle, which I think is the best offensive team in the NFC West. But 49ers are a complete team.
Yeah, I mean, you've got talent all over that roster, especially on defense. And you're going to see it's going to be hard for Seattle to do anything offensively, and it doesn't matter if the running backs come back healthy this week, because it's going to be hard for Seattle to do anything offensively.
Yeah, and we saw that the first time when we played them.
Yeah, where we did nothing offensively the entire game, and they pretty much just ran all over us. But
it's 3-and-out fest.
Yeah, it's going to be like that again. Just simply because if Seattle, if you can't run the football, if you can't, protect Geno, you're not doing much, and that's going to be a problem.
I think offensively as well. I'm going to say that we're going to be right in this game. The NFL is weird. It's like you can be really awful on Sunday and come back on Thursday and look like a completely different team. And I expect that, actually, from Seattle in this game because of just pride. Geno Smith, is a guy that doesn't want to make those mistakes. I think he's going to be a little bit more conservative. He even talked about it at the press conference saying, hey, I've been pressing a little bit, trying to carry this team. He didn't say that out loud, but that's kind of what he was implying. I've made some throws that I should have made, and need to dial it back a little bit, get this thing kind of under control, not turn the ball over so much. I expect them to do that. Hopefully Ken Walker comes back. They give him a chance. I think our interior offensive line is still a problem, but those guys need to come and battle. And they know they've had this thing circled for a long time. It's a revenge game. And see what they're made of, and see if they can kind of push this thing down the road. I'm not so much worried about our offense against their really good defense. I think we're going to have opportunities. My concern is on the defense, obviously, with Seattle. But then again, we're facing a quarterback in Purdy who doesn't have a lot of experience. They're going to be conservative in their play calling, and I think Seattle should anticipate that. Load up that box. 8 guys, 9 guys, leave our guys back in isolation. I would even bring Diggs up, because I don't know that they're going to give Purdy the opportunity to throw over the top against him. And I think we've got some corners that have the ability to at least permit that. And just sell out. Like you said, sell out. Stop the run first and then see what happens.
Yeah. I'm looking at the defense because this defense is great. And, 36 sacks on the year. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. But then you look at the numbers and you're like, wow, that's spread out over a lot of different guys. They have one good pass rusher in Nick Bosa, who's leading the NFL in sacks at the moment. The second best pass rusher they've got has 4.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's it. They and then a guy at 3.5. And then you're down into random players at non-pass rush positions that occasionally blitz or something. You've got one guy. That's the most important player to block if you're going to drop back to pass.
Yes.
Do not let him go one-on-one against one of the rookie tackles. Yes, the rookie tackles have been great.
Especially in the second half.
we also have some really good tight ends that can help them. And against a guy like Bosa, give him some help. Yeah. Make Disley go in and chip him or start with a double team and then release
and they've
out
been
for
running
something.
What do they call it? 13 personnel.
Yeah.
Where they've got 2 running backs as well.
No, that would be 23.
23. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not so concerned in this game, to be completely honest. We're playing on house money anyway. This is a team that's coming in that kind of wants to wrap up the division, and Seattle's fighting. Mm-hmm. I expect a fight. I think Seattle, for all that's gone on, is still a prideful team. They got players that are like Bruce Irvin, that's a vet out there. Quandre Diggs, he's had kind of a down season, but he's a prideful vet. These are guys that don't want to get run over and have been. And they are taking pride in at least putting this thing together, and I expect them to. So I'm thinking close game in this game for some reason. What do
you think they do at quarterback in the offseason? Because you've
Seattle?
The 49ers, because you've got Trey Lance, who didn't look great and then hurt his knee.
You got to run.
You got
Trey Lance.
Jimmy Garoppolo is a free agent. He's got a clause in his contract that says they cannot tag him. So he is free to go wherever the money is. And people are talking about Brock Purdy and how that he looked really calm and steady, even though he didn't put up big numbers in this game, last week's game.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do? Because if Purdy stays in there and he's going to be the guy. If they
let me ask you this: does Purdy have the arm to do what Kyle Shanahan wants to do on offense? Now we've seen, because Jimmy, that Kyle Shanahan can win games with Jimmy Garoppolo and basically a placeholder style quarterback who's a middling kind of guy that doesn't turn the ball over. And if they found that in Brock Purdy, they may elect to let Jimmy Garoppolo go just because they've tried that for so long and the injuries kind of pile up and so forth. If they found a younger version of that, I still give Trey Lance the ball, the first snap in September next year, and then you've got Brock Purdy back there. I mean, that seems like a pretty decent thing for them. But
if Purdy leads this team into the playoffs, let's say they win a playoff game. I mean, the roster's talented enough; they should go deeper than that. But they do that with this rookie, and you've got you're going into training camp with a quarterback controversy, because there are people who are going to be like, we've
I
seen
don't
this kid for 2
necessarily think
years
so.
and he's not ready.
Yeah,
Purdy led us last year.
the
So
reason that I don't think so is that Purdy seems to be like the Jimmy Garoppolo kind of quarterback, and Trey Lance is a difference maker, a field tilter, and I know for a fact that Cal Shanahan wants to have the complete open playbook, with downfield opportunities and all that kind of stuff, and Trey Lance gives him that, and so I would still lean in that direction.
yeah, I would as well, but we aren't in that locker room. Guys want to win, and they don't want to develop Trey Lance.
That's the interesting part of this equation, is they are definitely a win now team with a wide open Super Bowl roster, but the quarterback thing is weird. So that's an interesting conundrum from them. And
what do the Rams do at quarterback? The Baker Mayfield as QB1.
I'm not sold on that. I don't think you are either. but it is an interesting thing, because I just don't know where Matthew Stafford is. Obviously, he's getting a little more susceptible to being banged up, but I don't necessarily think his career is over. I don't know how severe that injury was. I think they basically just tried to shut him down because their record was such that I think that's where they're at in the season. But I still think he comes back and is their starter next year.
Okay. So now let's move on to Arizona for the same question, because Kyler Murray hasn't been Kyler Murray this year. He blows out a knee. Next year, if he does come back, he won't be explosive. Does his game translate if he doesn't have the ability to run and stretch plays? And if he doesn't, do you go, okay, we need him 100% before he plays? That's going to be mid-season at the earliest.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's an ACL in December, Keith. I think that as a quarterback, I think he's going to be ready to go to September 1st. However, he may not be as athletic as he was in November 2022. So if you take a slightly less athletic Kyler Murray that can still operate within an offense, maybe it actually does them a service, because he's been asked to run all over the place, and maybe it allows that team to play within a more structured offense, and maybe that's what they need. I don't know. It certainly hasn't been working for them. It didn't work for them this year. Last year they started 8-1. The year before that they started 8-1 or whatever it was, and they fade down the stretch. And I'm not a huge Kyler Murray guy. I think talent-wise, I think he's good, but between the ears, he really bothers me as an immature player. And so I'm not sure if he's ever going to be the answer for them. But his athleticism has carried the team as far as the offense goes for a while. And maybe without that, they play a more structured game, and it works for them. I don't know.
Can he do that?
Yeah, I think you could. I think, if you take a look at some of you would have to have some, some structure. So you would have to have, your blocking and maybe an extra running back in or a tight end, to give him a little extra protection and kind of get the ball out quicker, which I think he's capable of. They sling the ball all over the place. They've got a couple of good tight ends. I think so. I
don't know. What happens when you take away Russell Wilson's athleticism and his ability to make people miss and stretch out plays and all those things?
Yeah, it's hard to compare those two, but
it's actually,
I see what you're saying.
I don't think it's hard to compare the two. They're both undersized, short quarterbacks who make a living extending plays and kind of backyard football. and then have
Well, it's certainly
tremendous arms.
what makes them look great.
It's why there's some that
It's the X factor for sure.
Watching Kyler Murray is like watching a young Russell Wilson, in that they're both really fun, and they don't operate inside the structure of an offense very well. And what Denver is learning this year is that Wilson, without his athleticism, being asked to operate within the structure of an offense isn't working.
Yeah,
And
I don't know if that's entirely fair, but I'll say this: yes, this year it didn't work. I'm not familiar enough with the intricacies of that offense and his offensive line and what he's been asked to do. We know from history that Russell Wilson holds onto the ball and looks for longer plays to develop rather than the short, quick hitting game. But I think Russell Wilson could be an excellent quarterback if he was in a quick hitting offense. Let's just say Tom Brady's offense. I think he could do that if that's what he was asked to do and he was willing to do it. I don't know if he's even willing to do it.
That's the part. I mean,
so Kyler Murray, I don't know if he's willing to do it, but if he was limited and he knew he was limited, maybe he would be.
Yeah, I mean, I look at which of those two players is more mature between the ears, willing to do the study, put in the work, grind the tape, to make sure they're getting it right.
That's a very interesting question.
And of those two,
you would think Russell Wilson.
Russ. It's Russ.
And so but at the same time, his ego is about twice as big as Kyler Murray's too. That's been proven out. So I don't know.
That's fair. I don't know. I just see a lot of parallels. I was thinking about this.
Why have you kind of you've asked about 3 NFC West teams? I'm curious as to what your thoughts.
I ask it because it's the division, and it's the quarterback situation in this division looked coming into the year. It was like everybody's set but Seattle, and Seattle is a mess at quarterback. They're not going to be competitive, and they're not going to be for a while because they can't solve the most important position. I ask you about all three of the teams because there's massive questions right now about the quarterback position of all three of those teams. No, there's still massive questions in Seattle because they have to re-sign Geno. But out of all the quarterbacks in the division, Geno's played the best this year.
Yeah, if I was on an executive for each team, I would feel the most anxiety if I was the 49ers general manager, because they have the most to lose, because they're the most ready team right now to compete for a Super Bowl as far as a roster is concerned. Mm-hmm. And they've got this unsettled thing going on at quarterback. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's likely gone, but they could sign him. They've got this rookie guy, who knows, and then Trey Lance. Now, Trey Lance is the thing. It's like he's got one more year, even though he hasn't been on the field this year. He's got another year of study. He's been around the offense. Next year is do or die for him, to me, in this offense, because they're ready now. They can't wait for him to develop. They need to either be ready with him or they need to move on, and they need to do it quick because their roster's ready.
Move on to what?
Move on to plan B, whatever that is. Jimmy Garoppolo, maybe they make a trade for, with Green Bay to get Aaron Rodgers in. I don't know. Whatever it is, they need to do it quick, because when you have a roster like this and the window's open, they've got 2 or 3 years, maybe less, even if they don't have a quarterback.
If you're John Lynch, you're the GM for the 49ers, and you're looking at this roster and all the problems, do you find a trade partner for Trey Lance and try and sign Geno Smith?
Oh, man. No, I do not do that deal, because Trey Lance is 25 next year, and Geno Smith is going to be 34. That's it.
Yeah, but you're just saying they're in win now mode.
They are in win now. Can Geno Smith take the 49ers roster to the Super Bowl? That's the question.
Can Geno Smith, if Jimmy Garoppolo could take the 49ers roster to the Super Bowl, Geno Smith can.
Yeah. Yes, possibly. And the only reason I put a little possibly on there is because Geno Smith's more prone to turnovers, and that would kill Kyler, or not Kyler, but their coach. I mean,
Shanahan.
yeah, Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan. You can't have that, and so
I don't know.
I don't know.
Geno, he had 2 interceptions in this game. It's his first multi-interception game. He only had, what was it, 6 coming or 7?
He's been playing well. I'm not. I'm just saying he takes a little bit more chances. He's got a little bit bigger of an arm, obviously, than Jimmy Garoppolo. It could be the difference for them. I mean, that could, in fact, get them there. You'd have to have some pretty sizable cojones as John Lynch to make a deal. Something. Now, I'm not saying it's a straight deal, Trey Lance for Geno Smith, but that's essentially what it would be.
Yeah, on their roster, that's what it is. Because
right.
Now it would be Trey Lance, or it would be Geno Smith, because you'd sign him as a free agent, and you get whatever draft capital you get for Trey Lance.
Not necessarily with Seattle, but
a rebuilding team will send you a couple
Seattle
draft picks.
Be interested in Trey Lance?
Probably.
See, that makes it really interesting.
If Geno gets
inside the division.
If Geno gets shipped, or not, who gonna get shipped? He's going to be a free agent. But if Geno doesn't sign with Seattle elects not to tag him, and he goes to San Francisco. Yeah, I mean, and Trey Lance
talk about a cloudy situation. I don't know that if you're San Francisco and Trey Lance coming off an injury, and you sign Geno Smith in the offseason, doesn't necessarily dictate that Trey Lance is off the roster. But if they made that decision to be able to get draft capital to build their roster around Geno, that's a very interesting conversation to have. There'll be many interesting conversations in February with Geno Smith, because, boy, that thing could go 2 or 3 different ways.
You know, a team that has a really good defense but needs a quarterback? Denver. Oh, I almost got through that with a straight face. And
yeah. And it's crazy, because you and I both sat here in May, June, July, talked about our defense to the point where I thought we were going to have a top 10 defense, and we were just going to figure out that quarterback thing, and that was going to be the way it was. And now since we've went through that 4-game win streak and things have kind of fallen off a little bit more, it's hard to completely fall off of Geno's bandwagon, because not all of this has been his fault. The lack of running game, etc., the defense taking the ball away from the offense has just created a situation where now Geno's pressing a little bit, and
wins are not a quarterback stat; they're a team stat.
Yeah.
Look at what a quarterback does to help your team.
Listen, we're number 2 pick.
The problem.
You told me in September, and we were looking at the potential of having some sort of top 5 pick. We thought it was going to be ours. And I said, what if Geno plays well? And you said you still go get a quarterback, because franchise quarterbacks don't grow on trees. And if you're picking at the top of the draft,
it's
that's
your
what
only
you
opportunity.
do, because it's the most important position in football, period. What do you do now, Keith? What if we're picking number 2? You've got the choice of the top 3 quarterbacks available.
You take Marcus Stroud,
or you have Jalen Carter sitting there.
I think you take Marcus Stroud and you don't even think about it. I know Jalen Carter sitting there. I know
CJ Stroud, you mean?
Yeah. Is that what I said?
You said Marcus. I think that
okay.
I'm not completely sold on Stroud being the best prospect. I want to go through the process for sure in the offseason to know that for sure. But I'm not sure if he's like the franchise answer any more than, say, Will Levis is.
Well, you go into the offseason and you trust your scouts and you trust your people but if you're sitting there at number 2 and you have your choice, you take the best one and you don't worry about it. You don't think about it.
What if Carter's their number 1 prospect on the big board?
Does it matter?
What if they re-sign Geno in March?
See, that's the thing is the draft happens after free agency. They'll probably tag Geno Smith with the non-exclusive franchise tag, and then then you are like, okay, now you've got a quarterback in play. I still think you're not going to be picking at the top of the draft again. If you have if one of those guys you believe is a franchise quarterback, you take him. You have Geno for a year. You can trade Geno after that and move on. And it becomes a situation a lot like Alex Smith in Kansas City, where he, mentored this, kid Patrick Mahomes. You might have heard of him, and then moved on. And I think that Seattle could be in that kind of situation.
That's why I'm thinking the closer this thing gets, that as we go through this process, go through all the All-Star games, go through the combine, get close to the draft, you're going to watch Anthony Richardson rise up boards. And it would not surprise me or shock me if he's Seattle's #1 quarterback on their board.
No.
And not because he can play today, but because he's got the most upside and the most talent and the most closely resembling Allen from Buffalo in this draft.
I disagree with that.
And I know for a fact that John Schneider loved Allen as a prospect. And he's going to love Richardson for the same reasons.
I don't think that Richardson is...
And Allen wasn't ready either.
No, I'm not saying ready. I don't think that Richardson is the same type of quarterback as Josh Allen. I don't think that he is. He has some of the. He's at best Josh Allen light. He's not.
Well, currently, yeah. I mean, Josh Allen wasn't Josh Allen until he put
I'm
years under his belt.
Just physicality wise, he's not as big. He's not as strong. He doesn't have as big of an arm.
Okay, we're going to revisit this conversation in 2.5 months. But
no, if CJ Stroud is available,
he's certainly a winner, Keith. But I'm going to say right now that he does not play in an NFL style offense.
Who cares?
And that offense is designed specifically to make him look good in a one-read situation. It's very easy, vanilla. His receivers are the best in the country, and they're wide open every play. And guys like Will Levis had a horrible offense, had a horrible offensive line, had no weapons, played within a structure, though, that was completely designed to allow him to make decisions at the line of scrimmage, change plays, etc. He's way more ready, NFL ready, than Stroud is. I'm just saying. Now, talent-wise, they could be completely off, but I'm just saying Will Levis is ready.
But you're not drafting a year one starter. You have Geno on the roster. You can draft a guy and develop him.
We'll know by the draft if we have Geno on the roster.
J. Stroud has the higher upside.
It's possible. I gotta really study this. I really do.
I've watched Richardson play a couple games. I have not done obviously a full
I haven't either.
A full tape viewing and all of that. I've watched him play a couple games, but I was much below impressed in both of those games. Yeah. At this point, I wouldn't touch him.
Well, he looked better. He looked better.
Fourth round pick.
There's a reason that he's a first round draftable talent, and I want to go see that for myself. He's got tremendous athletic upside. I really do believe that. It's just he only completed 55% of his passes. To me, that's a red flag alone. Among others,
he was not accurate. Short, not accurate. Middle, not accurate down the field. And his offense was very much a one read. If it's not their run.
I'm hearing some guys out there talk about Jalen Carter as a defensive tackle, 3-tech potentially, in this draft as being as close to, who's your favorite player?
Cortez Kennedy.
well, not Cortez Kenny. Who's the active guy on the Rams?
Aaron Donald.
Aaron Donald. He's as
Yeah.
close to Aaron Donald as they've seen in the last 10 years or so. So if you got a guy sitting there, and the way that our defense is looking now, and you've got Geno on the roster, I don't know that I necessarily go out and get Stroud because he's sitting there at 2 or whatever. I think I do best player available, especially if it's on the defensive side, and a game wrecker type guy that we know for a fact is the answer to build your defense around. That might be the guy.
And then you take Richards at
Possibly,
21 or wherever Seattle's at, and
possibly
pray that he's not awful.
Yeah, or you develop him. I mean, certainly that gives you an opportunity to develop him. You know, when you do have 2 first-round draft picks, you do have an opportunity to kind of use that second one on a potential franchise quarterback. So, I mean, here's the deal. You have to trust your process. You know, at that point, you have to trust that that's the guy that they like and they love, and they're going to go with that. But other than that, I don't know enough yet to know if that would be the suitable draft pick or not. I would double up personally on the defensive side. That's just me. The defense is so bad right now. All I want is defensive linemen in the draft.
Yeah, that was me on the offensive line for years, especially when Tom Cable was screwing up Seattle's Super Bowl window. Is I'm like, just draft offensive line in every single round and hope that a couple of them are good enough to play.
It's funny
because he can't evaluate guys, and they've given him power. So just give him a whole bunch and hope that a couple are good.
You know what's really going to tick you off this year is that their first pick, I think, is going to be great. They're drafting second or third or fifth, top 5 probably. They could trade down out of that. I don't know if that necessarily matters. We'll see. With that second pick, though, if they draft Bijan Robinson, the running back out of Texas, and the only reason I say that is I don't want them to necessarily draft him there, but I think that they miss Rashad Penny more than they would ever admit out loud. I think that Walker is great for them, but he's a different type of runner. I don't necessarily think that he's finesse. He doesn't have that vibe to him, but he doesn't have that overwhelming 235-pound physicality that Rashad Penny had. Not only the physical nature in between the tackles, but he could break that thing away too. And this is that kind of a running back where he's just going to be a good physical player with breakaway speed and catching the ball out of the backfield and stuff. I think he's that good to go early in the first round. I just don't know if Seattle makes that pick, but they've proven that they're not afraid to pick their players, and he might be the one. But that would be my wild card pick. But I wouldn't want to see that pick until like the first pick in the second round, if they're going to go do something like that,
or the second pick.
The other name to watch, and I want you to kind of do the research on this too, is Paris Johnson Jr., the offensive tackle out of Ohio State. I'd see him moving inside, and so he might be a good right guard candidate for this team as a potential second pick in the first round.
Yeah, I want to see what he does at the combine. I don't know if he is as athletic as people are saying. And because if he was, he'd be at tackle, right? So there's a reason why people are starting to say go inside. And it's not just the arm length. I want to see what he does. I think I like him as a guard a lot more than I like him as a tackle.
I think Seattle's going to be able to find their interior. I think they're going to be able to find on both sides of the ball in the trenches guys in this draft. At the top of the draft, and then up through about round 4, there's some really good players at center and offensive guard on the offensive side. And on the defensive side, there's some really good run stuffing type defensive tackles and a couple of upside 3-tech types as well. So I'm kind of excited about this draft. It'll be interesting to see what they do.
So let's do predictions. We got away from San Francisco because I wanted it to direct this conversation into a hey, look at how awful the division has turned out to be mode. But let's do predictions for San Francisco. What do you got?
See, I think it's going to be a tough game for both teams to score a lot of points and move the ball up and down the field. I think Seattle somehow gets their defense stiffening up in this game. And I think, limiting San Francisco to around 300 yards of total offense, 40% of the conversion rate on third downs, that sort of a thing. I really do think that they just kind of come into this thing and improve overnight, quote unquote. On the offensive side, I'm a little worried. I think it's going to come down to turnovers. And I want Gino to have a good game. And I think if he does, they're in this thing. And so I'm thinking like 20-17. And I'm going to give it to Seattle. Seattle's going to have a revenge game here. They're going to win at home. They've dropped 3 games at home already this year. They've got 3 of the remaining 4 games at home. And they need this game. They need this game. I think, not just to get in the playoffs this year, but I think they need it to just kind of reset the tone of the team and the defense, and that's kind of what I'm feeling on a Tuesday evening before a Thursday night game.
Christian McCaffrey is a unique player at running back.
At least Debo. I mean, I don't want injuries, but Debo's not there.
Debo Samuel's not there. That changes that removes a big chunk of their offense because a lot of it was designed around him. But Christian McCaffrey is a unique type of running back with a ton of speed and a lot of open field ability. And I can see him giving Seattle a lot of trouble.
Me too.
Without Samuel there, though, Brian Ayuk's the only other receiver that he's like the only receiver that I really would worry about. McCaffrey's going to probably get 8 or 9 catches.
Yeah,
on top
but
of the runs,
McCaffrey's going to be Purdy's best friend.
Yep.
And Ayuk is going to be a guy that's, a dump off option down in the middle. But McCaffrey's going to get 15, 25 touches in this game if he's healthy and able. He's probably going to have 12 receptions and 14, 15 carries in this game.
Mm-hmm. Maybe more because if they've got a lead. But I look at and I go, McCaffrey is a type of player that is going to just feast on the way Seattle's defense has been playing recently. But the rest of the offense there, without an experienced quarterback, without Debo Samuel and the weapons, he's the best weapon that they've got. So he's not out there. Does the offense become one-dimensional enough that Seattle can get extra bodies up and stop McCaffrey?
Well, that's entirely up to Seattle.
Yeah. If they do it, and I think they can. I really do. My problem is I don't know if Seattle can score points because
a turnover or two would help.
If
you put the ball on the field, if you're San Francisco and Seattle recovers, if if Woolen has an interception, that really helps Seattle, especially if you're in a shortened field situation to be able to score. So
Gino's going to make some plays. He'll make some plays every week.
He's been making some mistakes.
Yeah.
Lately
will it be enough?
How many points do you expect Seattle to score if you're worried? 20? Less?
Less.
I mean, they've been scoring 26.
I know, but they haven't been playing this defense.
They also haven't had the ball very much in the last couple of games.
And you think they're going to have the ball a lot in this game?
It doesn't seem like it logically. But yes, I expect the time of possession to be almost equal in this game.
Okay. Because I'm looking at this, I think it's going to be a really low scoring game.
Like
I'm thinking that 16-13.
I don't ugly game. Oof.
is going to be the score. Do the math there. That's a touchdown for each team, and then a bunch of field goals. Yeah.
And Seattle's been a pretty decent red zone team. Not so much third down conversion team, but they've been holding teams to less points than they should based on the amount of yards and plays that offenses have had against us. Mm-hmm. We've been averaging about 3 points less than they should be giving up. So they do stiffen up in the red zone. So it'll be interesting to see. I think pride. The name of this game on Thursday is pride. Like, how much pride does Seattle have?
We'll find out.
It's gut check time.
Mm-hmm.
You stop the run, you've been embarrassed, over and over again, and you've been called out by your own teammates to do something about it. So this is going to come down to a gut check, and I think Seattle's up to the task, but we'll find out.
We'll find out.
All right. So you've got to win or lose.
Loss. 16-13. San Francisco. Yeah. I hate that. I hate it. Picking San Francisco to win, it kills me a little bit. But they've got the better roster.
That seems more realistic than me. I'm a little pie in the sky here, but I'm holding on to my last vestiges of optimism. And if they don't come through for me in this game, I'm probably gonna have to mail it in the rest of the year. All right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NWChawk. You can find the show and all that on your favorite podcast platforms and YouTube channel. Got our own channel. We're on, other than this week, we're normally on 3 times a week. And if you subscribe, you don't miss it. So until next time, go Hawks.
Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NWChawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.